monetized channel. And so I do appreciate your guys' support in that manner. And this is a pre-recorded show, so I am not live. This is coming out as a recorded show here. So, and I cut my own thing off when I revamped that. My D dropped over here on pre-recording. That doesn't help, does it? So this is the original probable cause affidavit clip. And at the time I had shared that because it was pulled into the probable cause affidavit, that it would have been the information that would have been entered into Orion about what Dan DULIN said and what happened. So here we know that Dan DULIN is saying that Alan was out on the trail from 1:30 to 3:30, and he parked at the old Farm Bureau building. He walked to the New Freedom Bridge, which I find it interesting that he uses the term New Freedom Bridge. While at the Freedom Bridge, he saw 3 females. He noted one was taller, had brown or black hair. He did not remember description, nor did he speak with them. He walked from the Freedom Bridge to the High Bridge. He did not see anybody, although he stated he was watching a stock ticker on his phone as he walked. He stated there was vehicles parked at the High Bridge trailhead. However, he did not pay attention to them. He did not take any photos or video. His cell phone did not list an IMEI, but did have the following. And he has an MEID number and the MEID hex number. And he notes that there's potential follow-up information on the 3 girls walking on the area of the Freedom Bridge. Now, I did a show to tell you the difference between an IMEI and an MEID and what that means. Nowadays, any phone provider whatsoever that you're going to have a phone plan with, their phones are required to have an IMEI. 2 reasons. 1, you don't pay your bill. IMEI they can use, and they can stop the phone from working. The other reason you have an IMEI is if your phone is stolen, and the provider can use that to help locate your phone. Where is it exactly? And again, also stop it from performing. So in the little bit more of the probable cause affidavit, the investigators talked about that they believe that what Richardallen is referring to is the CPS building, because there is not a Farm Bureau building in the area, nor had there been. So he used a different name for the building that he parked to. Now, I want to make sure that I do also share that now Captain Dan DULIN, but he was lieutenant at the time, is an Indiana DNR officer. He has done other cases, which has been notable, where he has found drowned victims, a drowned child, all types of stuff that he's been in the news and stuff before. But his family, and he is from Delphi. He actually had a child who graduated from Delphi in 2022. And remember, Abby and Libby would have graduated from Delphi High School in 2021. So he is not in the town searching out this stuff without knowing information about Delphi itself. So, again, this is continuation of that probable cause that basically said that the females that he saw and who the witnesses were and described. And remember, the one he knew very well, well, that's the one who spoke to him, and he didn't say anything back to her on that day. Now, I pulled up some information about the 2019 press conference. And information and clarification that the police were doing. So following that, so in 2019, they're looking for a car that was parked at the abandoned CPS parking lot between the hours of noon and 5 on February 13th of 2017. I know all of you who followed the case know that. But let's go back. If their police are inquiring about this and also asking for anybody who has any information or could give a description of vehicles that were in the parking lot during that time, they're wanting these people to come forward. They're giving the actual address of it being on the 6931 West 300 North. Okay? And at that time, there's no thought of Richardallen, if he's just providing a tip, to say to them, oh, hey, that was my car, right? Or in Dan DULIN, to know that he spoke to someone who tells him the old Farm Bureau building, and because Dan DULIN is from Delphi, he knows that's the CPS building. That's not that big of a town. So again, they're asking people to give information. And remember, this is when the new sketch and stuff was also provided. Now let's go with Kathy Shank, who is my hero. I don't know about all of you, but my God, if she had not found this. Now, Kathy Shank was a case manager for Department of Child Services for 40 years. And when this all happened, she volunteered to try to go help. And she helped where all the tips and stuff were coming on. And if you remember, the office got moved once because of all the number of people who were working on the case. And then when it got sized down some, then it, moved up to another location as well. Now, I would say that can affect stuff, except we're talking about a tip that was received 5 days after the murder. We're not talking about stuff that came in months later or came in when the office moved here or moved there. We're talking about a tip that would have been collected within 5 days, fresh. Everybody knows this is the murder. This is getting the tip. So Kathy Shank volunteered to help administrative duties, like organizing the files and the tips into a database. She estimated she handled about 14,000 tips related to the Delphi murder case. But she told the court she volunteered on the case because she wanted to help. So then we have to fast forward to when this was told to us it was found, which is on September 21st of 2022. What was going on during this time? Well, during this time, the Wabash River was being searched because of Keegan Klein talking to the state police and FBI out at Grissom Air Force Base. He gets taken out of the jail to go speak to them. His trial for his CSAM is put on hold because we keep hearing that he's possibly cooperating with something. Well, whatever he was talking about, we knew couldn't be about CSAM because the CSAM stuff isn't in the Wabash River. They already had all the stuff they wanted. They had his devices. Although, remember, they lost whatever he had on the iPhone 5 because he ended up leaving that behind and or it got purposely hidden, and it did not get turned in until after he came back home for 3 days, then calls the police, tells them he has it, and it goes out to the state police after everything's been deleted from it. But at this point, in September 21st of 2022, the Wabash River had started getting searched at the end of August. It was still going on during this time. So Kathy Shank says she comes across this file folder that was not with the others. Now, it was told specifically that she opened a drawer and that it was inside this box. So, but it wasn't with the others that she was managing. And inside was a report with the name Richardallen Whiteman. The report indicated that Allen was on the Monon High Bridge on the day of the murders. So she immediately notifies Tony Liggett, right? Who lead investigator on the case and with current Carroll County Sheriff. So Shank noted that the tip sheet said cleared and wasn't sure why Allen's name was entered incorrect as Richardallen Whiteman. So who wrote clear on Richardallen's, and as you see the quote, tip sheet? Now, very early on, in the first days of the murders, after they confirmed that it was the girls' bodies and everything like that, they had asked if anybody had been out on the trails that day that they needed to come forward very early on. And so people were asked to do that, to come forward from that. So where Shank noted that the tip sheet said cleared and wasn't sure why his name was incorrect, how is it cleared with the wrong name written on it? Right? How did somebody write cleared on it if they didn't even have what the right person's name is? It has the wrong last name. Who did Dan DULIN turn it into? And why was it not seen by Kathy Shank if it was turned in early on? It would have been very early when the first sheets were coming in. She volunteers, to help administratively to enter all of these sheets in. If she didn't see it, who did? Who wrote cleared on Richardallen's tip sheet? Who would have touched it? After Dan DULIN, right? But before Kathy Shank? Or did Dan DULIN write cleared on it? Why would it write cleared? When did the sheet get turned in? Now we hear a little more detail about what Dan says in his testimony about what he did after he got this tip. And we'll go over that. Why didn't Richardallen or Dan DULIN, come forward when video was released? Or in 2019, when they asked about the car parked at the CPS building? Why didn't any of these ring in memory to Dan DULIN? Why was there no follow-up on the 3 girls Richardallen saw that day, as noted, which were, witnesses? So the discrepancy surrounding Allen's address, which was located on Whiteman or Whitman Drive, however you pronounce it, Shank determined the name on the tip was incorrect. So she's looking at this. She's not law enforcement. She doesn't, do this stuff. She does DCS stuff, but she knows that it is with Richardallen being the person's name, and that the Whiteman or Whitman referring to his home address. So Kathy Shank told the court the report caught her attention because she recalled 3 girls reported being or seeing a man on the bridge and thought there was a possible correlation between that. But then I ask you, if Kathy Shank, a volunteer, knew about the 3 girls, so would have Dan DULIN. DULIN was a beginning part of this investigation. He was being sent out there to participate in getting all of these tips, and then they're assigning these tips, right? They were getting followed up on by people, and he's going out to do so. So, but she knows about the 3 girls. He was part of it. He was talking to people. He interviewed people in the beginning of the case. So how would Dan DULIN not know that there were 3 girls who followed them? And why would he not then definitely have a reminder that he heard Richardallen say he saw 3 girls? During cross-examination from defense attorneys, Andrew Baldwin said Shank said she never saw any other tips regarding Richardallen or Richardallen Whitman. She simply thought the report was something to look into. So I want to kind of go a little backwards to look at what stuff was happening at the time. So in February 15th of 2017, police released a photo for assistance identifying a man seen walking on the trail. So this was very initial, the first couple of days. It came out. It was just a still picture. There was no video yet. And this was the 15th. So in this information, investigators want to talk with him about what he may have seen. And they tell you that they know he was there on the 13th, right? They would also like to speak with anyone who was parked at the High Bridge trailhead on February 13th between 1 and 5. Anyone who knows about the pictured man or has any information is asked to call a special tip line set up for the case. Information provided will be followed up on by officers working the case. Tips can be submitted anonymously. So it's telling them right ahead, the very beginning, on the 15th, we're looking for this guy. He's on the bridge. We know this person parked at the trailhead. Between these hours, give us a call. So this is the initial public information, totally out there. And trust me, the Delphi community knows this. So again, February 15th, 3 days before Dan DULIN talks to Richardallen. So here's what Dan DULIN said during his testimony. So the state calls him, and he's asked with helping investigators track down leads in the Delphi murder case. He met with Allen on February 18th of 2017. Again, just a few days after the murders. He was the lieutenant at the time, which I told you guys. Allen had contacted investigators to, quote unquote, self-report that he had been on the Monon High Bridge on the day of the girls disappeared. DULIN initially wanted to meet, and this, I don't know why this isn't suspicious, because this is being said by DULIN in the testimony. He wanted to meet at Allen's house, but Richardallen didn't want to meet there. So then DULIN suggested that they meet at the police station. Again, Richardallen wanted a different location. And if you watch the show I did last, I show you on the map that the Save-A-Lot grocery store is just like a couple of minutes away from the CVS store. But you also have that the police station is close by as well. So it was Allen who suggested to meet in the parking lot of the Save-A-Lot store. So DULIN agrees. Now, he had commented that he kind of thought that was weird at the time. Well, yeah, you've got this guy who's supposed to be coming forward. He's telling you he's out there on the day of the murders. You're trying to get them out there. Why is he not willing to come to the police station? Why is he not willing to, let you go to his house to get the information? So DULIN says he confirms Allen's name and noted that he lived on the Whiteman Drive. Allen told DULIN he was in the area of the Monon Bridge between 1 and 3 on the day of the girls disappeared. The phrase keeps me saying disappeared, not that they were murdered, which I found interesting. Over the course of the conversation, Allen then changes the timeline to 1:30 to 3:30. He told DULIN he saw 3 young girls when he was walking, and by Allen's account, he wasn't paying much attention to his surrounding as he walked and checked a stock ticker on his phone. He said he went to the Freedom Bridge and then went to the Monon High Bridge. DULIN was confident Allen had parked at the old DCS building. If he is, then why every time they remind people that this person they have the first photo of, right? Then first it's this is a guy we just want to talk to. Later he turns into the suspect. Then later we get a video, and at no point in time, it doesn't ring into Dan DULIN's mind. Wait a minute. I literally talked to a guy who said he was on the trail where the 3 witnesses saw, which Kathy Shank knows about. Why wouldn't Dan DULIN know about it? Then you have, he goes over to the Monon High Bridge. Well, the girls were on the Monon High Bridge. Other witnesses saw stuff on the Monon High Bridge. That's where they were taken from down the hill, right? By them. And I don't even mean just right away in 2017, which he should have made sure. I mean through all of these years. Then he's saying here, he's pretty sure that he was parked at this DCS building. Well, they were asking about that building again, and who's parked there. That didn't ring a bell in somebody's mind that he's parked there. Dolan told the court the conversation lasted 10 minutes. He talked to a guy who was on the trail on the day of the murders and only talks to him for 10 minutes. Now, mind you, he can be getting this info. He's getting the info. He's supposed to turn it in. It's supposed to be entered into the Orion system. And that's how they use that to pull up leads and follow up. That's what the hell the Orion system is for. So then he says, after this meeting, he typed up the notes on his Microsoft Word. And then this is all it says. The information was then filed into the system. What the hell does that mean? Dolan told the court he didn't think much of the interview until investigators contacted him in 2022 after Kathy Shank found his 2017 report. So, let me point out, this is 2002 is when she found his report. It never got entered in Orion. So way back 2022, we're thinking, okay, maybe it didn't pull forward, maybe it didn't come out of there, whatever. But now we find out that this tip was taken. It never got entered into the Orion system because Kathy Shank doesn't find it sitting in this drawer, in a box, in a file marked with the wrong name on it, marked with cleared written across it until 2022. Was it always there? Did somebody move it? He was asked if he had spoken to Allen when Shank found this. They said he searched his computer and he found a document he typed and turned over his files, is the way that's worded. Dolan went into the DNR files in 2022 to see if there was any additional information about Allen. He discovered that when Allen applied for a new fishing license in April 1st of 2017, he reported a new height and weight, changing his height from 5'4" to 5'6". He also listed a different weight. Well, I don't know about you, but your weight may change of what you're going in. But as an adult in your 40s, you don't grow 2 inches. Dolan said he found that uncommon. So when defense attorney Rossi cross-examined Dolan, he asked if anything about Allen struck him as unusual. No, Dolan answered. Why? How could he say no? He sat there and already said that the guy didn't want him to go to his house, didn't want to meet at the police station, makes him go and meet him at the Save-A-Lot. Is it possible they know each other? I'm just saying. Dolan is in Delphi. His kid's in Delphi. His kid is a year younger than when the girls would have graduated. He graduated his kid in 2022. So being from that area, could have they known each other? Who knows? Dolan testified that he gathered info from Allen's phone during their encounter in 2017, but didn't look at the contents. Well, why does that suck? Well, that also sucks because no follow-up since it didn't happen. Guess what happened during the trial? I know this is a shocker. Everybody's wondering why, well, they can't find that he was looking at this, or there's a photo here, or did he know the Kleins, or did he know Keegan, or did he know Tony, or would he connected to Anthony Schatz? Well, remember, in Keegan Klein's thing and in the testimony for this in pretrial, They said they could not find any digital connection between the Kleins. Well, of course they're not. They had 7 goddamn years to hide that shit. He gave the phone info to show him what phone he used, and that phone is gone. Even though he had more than 20 some devices that they found, including all bunch of different cell phones, he doesn't have the phone that he showed Dan DULIN in 2017. Now, why do I point that out? Because when you have a phone that has no IMEI, also AKA a burner phone, and you just buy it and buy the time and the minutes, guess what? That you don't go and get a plan, at Verizon or whoever, and get it on a phone that doesn't have an IMEI. Can't track it. Now all phones require that. So while investigators said they collected and analyzed 23 of Allen's electronic devices, his 2017 was not in possession of law enforcement and has not been found. 5 weeks after this was discovered of this misfiled report, Allen was arrested in connection with the murders. So the day after the meeting that Dan DULIN had with Richardallen, the news all came out showing, and I'm going to make sure I point this out if I haven't said it already. So according to information, supposedly Richardallen called to try to give a tip on that he was there on the 17th. Dan DULIN followed up with that to go meet with him in person. And then all this shenanigans happened with the meeting. And he meets with him on the 18th. Well, on the 19th, that photo of the guy on the bridge has now changed from "we just want to talk to this guy" to that this guy, aka bridge guy, is the suspect. Now, you also have to remember Dan DULIN did get to see him in person of what he looked like. Talk to him, hear him. So during the February 22nd, 2017 press conference is the first time that they released any audio. And that was down the hill. And I'm not going to show this particular one because I'm going to show this other one. Hopefully I can get it to go over. Maybe. Is it going to do it? Okay, there we go. So Dan DULIN is only at one press conference, which is at the February 22nd, 2017 press conference. Now, back when I did the other Orion system explanation and Dan DULIN video, I showed him on that as well. This was a different photo that I got, but the other photo I had too. Richardallen, then again, remember, met with him 4 days prior to this press conference. So I really want to share the conference because, and he's back over here. He's standing over here where behind the FBI guy. This is the guy from Indianapolis who was helping with the case immediately with people assigned out there, because he's right back here. And then you've got, Doug Carter, who was standing over here. So he's, right behind these guys while this is all going. And when I went back and I listened to this interview, you have to listen to what information and stuff they're asking for. I mean, even when they're saying, no tip is not important, all this stuff, right? All this stuff. So now, if, Dan DULIN did this form, filled this stuff in, went and talked to him, went and pulled that in there, and somehow somebody else touched it. And then it doesn't even get to that. Kathy Shank doesn't get to put it in the system. But she recognizes as soon as she sees it, she's like, I know it's this. Even if it's not, it's somebody else touching stuff, you would think the information over the years that Dan DULIN would have been like, I talked to this guy early on, and he was out there. He was there at the time of the murders. He was parked where you guys are saying. He's about this tall because I met him. I know how tall he is, right? I can identify what he looks like. And you would think eventually that would come up. But when you look at this conference from 2017, within, you're looking at just over, almost a couple weeks from the time of the killing, or 9 days from the time of the killing of the murders, and only 4 days with interview of Richardallen. Then when you hear this stuff, you're like, wait a minute. So let me show this and you'll see what I mean.
Why Libby? Why Abby? Why Delphi? Why Carroll County? I say that because this is a classic example and a clear example that evil lives amongst us.
This young lady's a hero. There's no doubt. To have enough presence of mind to activate the video system on her cell phone to record what we believe is criminal behavior that is about to occur. Yesterday.
A show of force. More than 24 police officers joined together to ask for your...
You could see there Doug Carter, the FBI, and Dan DULIN's back here. And I'm going to show you the full, not the news clip, but the full clip of it here. Hold on. Okay, so let me show the full thing here.
Okay, good morning. On behalf of Sheriff Tove Lisenby of the Carroll County Sheriff's Department, who is the lead agency in this investigation, Delphi Mayor Shane Evans, I would like to welcome you to Delphi, Indiana, and Carroll County. If you would allow me a little bit of latitude here before we get into the meat and potatoes of the press conference to give a couple of thank yous, I would like to do that now. We volunteer because we care. Again, we volunteer because we care. I saw that on a fire truck here in Delphi, Indiana yesterday. And I believe it's a way of life here in Delphi in the Carroll County community. Because the way this community has wrapped their arms around this investigation and provided not just resources for officers as they're investigating this case, but also their willingness to give us information and anything that we have asked, including this church today for the press conference that Pastor Todd has given us. And of course, we want to thank the Delphi United Methodist Church for this facility today. Again, I would like to thank everyone who's given donations and any general support to this investigation. I would also like to thank in advance the person who's going to call our tip line and give us that tidbit of information that's going to lead to the arrest of the murderers of Liberty German and Abigail Williams. And I would like to thank the media for their patience. I understand there's information that you would like to get to your subscribers, get out into the media. But as you know, we have information that is germane to our investigation that we have to keep close to the vest, because this investigation is too important to make any mistakes and give out the wrong information. So again, I thank you for your support and your patience as we go through this case. There are a couple of acknowledgements I must introduce today, a couple of folks, department heads that are here. We have Delphi Mayor Shane Evans, Carroll County Prosecutor Rob Ives, Carroll County Sheriff Tobe Lesenby, Delphi Police Chief Steve Mullen, Indiana State Police Superintendent Doug Carter, FBI Assistant Special Agent in Charge Greg Massa, and Captain Dave Burston, Chief Public Information Officer for the Indiana State Police. Obviously, the reason we are here today is to give out information in the double homicide of Liberty German and Abigail Williams.
I think that's important to also re-show of what people were involved in the initial investigation as they introduced everybody. And let me see if this gives here.
Our suspect, and we would like any information, and that's what we're investigating at this time. Also shown in front of me is an enlarged depiction of a person believed to be the suspect in this case. We are actively looking for this person. We believe this person is our suspect, and we would like any information, regardless of how small or minute you might believe that information to be. It might be the one piece of a very large puzzle that helps us get this person in custody. So please call our tip line, 844-459-5786. And again, I would like, as we go through this press conference, to remind the media there's going to be information that is germane to our investigation that we're not going to release today. But at the end of the press conference, we will have time for question and answers. So as we go through our speakers, I ask you to please hold your questions to the end of the press conference. So at this time, I would like to invite Indiana State Police Superintendent Douglas Carter to the podium.
Words tend to escape during these periods of times, and I've only had a couple of other situations in my lifetime where I'm able to stand before you and say that. Why Libby? Why Abby? Why Delphi? Why Carroll County? Why the region? Why the state? Why even in the nation? I say that because this is a classic example and a clear example that evil lives amongst us. To the family, to the community, the region, the state, as a leader of the Indiana State Police, I say, I am so very sorry. Resources. It's unlikely that any of you will ever see, nor will we ever see or experience again, the level of resources that are attached to this investigation. To the media. My gosh, all I can say is give you my sincere thanks. See, this isn't like TV. There's a perception that this can be solved very quickly. Anything that we do can be solved very quickly, but this is a testament that it can't, and we need you. We've needed you since last week. We need you today, and we need you tomorrow. and likely will need the media all across this nation. So from a simple guy like me to you, I say thank you. To the people dressed funny like me and those that represent the law enforcement profession, please understand we're human beings just like you. I'd stand anywhere in the nation with people standing behind me. And I would suggest to you that every time something like this happens, a little piece of us dies as well. But I also want you to understand how committed we are as a collective one, and we will continue. This has been briefed all the way up to the director of the FBI, Director Comey, and Greg Mass is going to talk a little bit about that. I've had an opportunity to speak to my boss, Governor Eric Holcomb, a couple of different times about this situation. And every time I do, I see this look that comes over his face, just like yours and this community's. And that's the unfortunate experience of experiencing evil. We're not stopping. The poster in front of you. Someone knows who this individual is. Someone knows who this individual is. Is it a family member? Is it a neighbor? Is it an acquaintance? Is it an associate? Or maybe that one guy that lives over at that one place that just kind of not right. Maybe it's his jeans. Maybe it's his jacket or his sweatshirt. Maybe it's his shirt tail. Maybe it's his posture. Maybe it's the right hand in his pocket. You see, even with technology, we need human intelligence. In other words, we need you. I'm not suggesting that science, that everything that we can do with science has been done, because we are just getting started. Abby and Libby deserve us. They deserve every single one of us, and not just the people standing up here on the stage that have given so much of their lives to not just this, but to this profession, but each and every one of you. Each and every person listening, watching, or seeing this in some form, we need you.
You know, listening to that in the first days of when this all happened, and them trying to share information with everybody of what's going on and who they're looking for. And who does Abby and Libby deserve? And when we think about that, I guess here's the thing. You know, tomorrow's sentencing. And when you think about it, if you followed this case for so long, I bet you that you could write an impact statement for how long you have been following this case and the up and downs and the information and stuff that's gone out. And for some reason, people who want to share misinformation, not the facts, you know, any of that, who don't want to share the truth to you. And when you listen to what is being said of information that they need and who they think this suspect is, and that they for certain already by this point, they have switched from, we want to talk to this guy, we think he saw something, automatically to, this guy is the suspect. He is it. We're looking for somebody who looks like this. Now, he goes further when he says about, you know, that it is fuzzy. Of course, it's fuzzy. They took a still picture from a video that Libby was taking on her phone of Abby crossing. and this man coming up from behind. And it's frustrating. I guess that's the biggest part to share, that we have somebody in there who just spoke to the murderer 4 days beforehand. And if you want to argue why did he come forward, he had to come forward. Too many people saw him. And I'll even ask you this, you know, the information that was shared was that, well, you know, Richardallen said he got spooked by the white van that was driven by Weber coming underneath the bridge, coming near where they were. Well, I'm going to argue the fact that he couldn't have got too spooked because he stayed a whole nother hour, more than an hour, with the girls, because they know that the phone, that was the last movement of the phone, that when the van came by, which they didn't know even happened until Richardallen said it happened, and then they had to look into it, and an FBI agent along with an officer went, found who owned the white van nearby, went and talked to him, found out that would have been when he was getting home from work, and he drives by. Well, guess what? He moves the girls. It shows the girls moving again, and then it stops moving when they get to where their bodies were found at 2:32 p.m. Well, he's not seen again till around 3:45. It didn't spook him enough to do that. He said, well, that's what made him kill the girls, because he got spooked and whatever. Well, I call bullshit. That didn't spook him enough. If you're spooked, he could have just walked away. He could have not done anything. He hadn't done anything to the girls. But he sits here and he decides to go across the water, go specifically across to where he did, and continue to spend over an hour there and do what he did. And then we have somebody who spoke to him, who knows that he's there, and doesn't want to meet where the officers at. You know, when you call an officer and you're going to give information that you were somewhere, located somewhere where a crime was committed, and then you're going to tell the officer where the hell you're going to meet. No, I'm not going to meet you at the police station. No, I don't want you coming to my house. You know, you meet me over in this other grocery store, not even where I work, which the CVS is right freaking there. He got in the car and just drove right a little bit, couple minutes, and there's the damn Save-A-Lot. He's telling the officer who he should go see. I mean, does anybody else think it's weird that this damn thing wasn't found for this long a period of a time? Let's hear more what he says about the picture.
Libby and Abby need you. Please do not rationalize tips away. Rationalize what you think that might not be important away. By thinking he would never do that to another.
Think about that. Doug Carter is literally saying this, and Dan DULIN is standing right there. If he's investigating tips, if he's getting leads, we see what it said that he was in charge of doing. Why would that not turn into lead? Doug Carter literally 4 days later is saying, don't think this person couldn't have done something. Don't make your mind not go there, whatever, about that. Everything's important.
Okay.
Oh, man.
We are
Just went
actively,
totally
I've only
back.
had a couple of other situations in my lifetime.
Sorry,
I'm
let me
so
find this.
very sorry. Profession. Please understand we're human beings. Just
Let me try to find a little closer where it was.
I've had an opportunity to speak to my boss, Governor Eric Holcomb, a couple different times about this.
Then to hear that they talked to the highest up of Comey and everybody.
Someone knows who this individual is. Is it a family member? Is it a neighbor? Is it an acquaintance? Is it an associate? Or maybe that one guy that lives over at that one place that just intelligence. In other words, we need you. I'm not suggesting that science, we need you. Libby and Abby need you. Please do not rationalize tips away. Rationalize what you think that might not be important away. By thinking he would never do that to another human being. Or think what I know doesn't matter. Let folks like the people that are standing behind me with such incredible passion and commitment and dedication to this profession make that determination.
And Dan Dolan's one of them.
Tips are anonymous. Some might not want to talk about it because they don't want to get involved, because they know the individual. Again, he may be a family member, probably has family. No one will ever know. No one will ever know. There's not an agency on the planet better than helping us facilitate this than the FBI. And they're as entrenched in this as anybody. No one will know. As poor as this picture is, somebody knows. And if you're watching, we'll find you. Who's next? I hate to ask you that question. I'd give my life to not have to. But I know you've asked yourself that very question. We must recognize it. You see, we're all the same. We're all human beings. We must keep our resolve for Libby and Abby, for this community, and frankly, to ensure that good trumps evil. And it will. You're going to hear more in just a minute about what we know. Do not discount the voice that you'll hear. We will stay committed with resolve. Very rarely exists.
So, thinking about that a long time ago, it's honestly amazing. So let me go ahead, move over here. Again, I'm just going to briefly touch on the Orion system and what the point of it was. And so it stands for Operational Response and Investigative Online Network. It's case management and related information processing capabilities to support deployed FBI and other federal, state, and local or tribal law enforcement personnel response to planned special events and unplanned critical incidents. So it's used to support investigations by providing services for critical incidents. So it's for lead management. It's for search and query capabilities. So you can look for something, you can find something, it will pull tips up in it. Like I went over all that stuff before with you guys. It supports the reporting, logging, and situational awareness. And it interfaces with analytical tools like link analysis and timelines. So, for example, if you put all this data in there and then you put a person, a male who's there between the hours of the murder time, who say he's near the bridge and stuff, Orion would pull that person up. So it's used specifically to involve multiple federal, state, and local agencies. So this is information that talked specifically about the technology of Orion. It has been updated for whatever. When this first started, they started back in 2008. And it talks about people and using it. They used it for the DC snipers, and how quickly that they caught the DC snipers with putting information from tens of thousands of phone and email tips, streaming it in. So many that this is the one point they had to be collected in boxes and driven to the primary command center every 4 hours, and difficult sharing information with our law enforcement partners at lightning speed. Underscored the fact that our crisis management software systems needed an upgrade, especially in post 9/11 era. And this is when they announced the tool. They do have it. The technology calls it Orion. And it gives real-time online network to quickly and effectively coordinate efforts in crisis situations. And it's no matter how many people are involved, where it might be located, or how big the case is. One thing they show in a given example is here, you could be in Chicago, somebody can be entering a tip on something they're working on because they use it for terrorist type stuff. And then they have somebody else in Florida who's in there, and when it entered in there, it works together. And it talks about when a phone tip is entered into the system, it can actively process that raw data and pushes the leads and intelligence out to investigators. And so it gives the example. If you get the tip received in LA about a person in Boston who could be a suspect in this terrorism type of case, the information is then entered in Orion. It's reviewed in LA and instantly routed electronically to Boston agents for action. So it performs automatic searching of new information entered into the system to locate potentially matching persons, locations, vehicles, events, and organizations. Remember, we've got the damn car parked at the CPS building. We have Richardallen who parked at the goddamn CPS building. He's trying to call it the Farm Bureau building, but we had it. And, you know, they use it to plan other stuff like the Super Bowl and stuff like that, but that's not what that's in here. When I talked about the Orion system before, I gave you an example back then when they were using it and when it was, you know, first hot and fresh before, again, it's been updated to different stuff and enhanced. But the Orion system was used for the April Tinsley case. And I don't know if you guys remember that, but that was a cold case for over 20 some years. A little girl who, you know, is walking home, and they sit here and decide to use with the FBI and everybody to try to find out what happened to this little girl. And we had information that the killer was riding on the side of a barn. They were leaving letters and stuff on kids' bikes and stuff like that. And they end up catching the man who did this. Now, how did they do that? They went back from the cold case stuff and they entered it all inside the Orion system. The Orion system would have worked for this if Richardallen was entered. I mean, that's what's blowing our minds, right? Richardallen was in front of someone by the 18th. 5 days after the murder, this could have been over. That tip could have been in there. They could have sat there, saw it. It would have popped that damn thing out as a potential, and he would have been investigated. All these other tips of everything else just kept popping in there. And they, would clear and assign teams and stuff like that. But nobody was ever signed to look at him. Somebody could have got to his phone before he got rid of it, because how did he get there? Are you believing that he happened to go out there to his mother's house, okay, that morning, goes out there, has breakfast, then decides to drink some beers, was going to stay for lunch, and for some reason, he decides he's going to go ahead and leave after he has 3 beers of a 6-pack, goes home, gets dressed, happens to grab a box knife, his gun from his house, goes back, rushes in front of these 3 girls. Why didn't he not stop for the 3 girls? Why did he not stop for Betsy Blair, the one woman who saw him on the first platform? There was nobody else right there. She says he turned around, kind of looked at her, and then looked, just kind of looked away like he was looking for somebody else, waiting for somebody else. He even used the terms laid in wait. The wait for what? How did he know to go after the girls? How did he not know that the girls didn't have parents who were also on the trail, or farther behind them, back on the Freedom Bridge on their way? How would he know to go ahead and follow them and that they were by themselves? He didn't ask them. They didn't tell him. But at the same time, and Anthony Schatz is supposed to meet them. Anthony Schatz tells her for all her friends, I was supposed to, I went there. She never showed up. She just happened to be being groomed online by pedophiles when she shows up there. And then he insists while he's in jail, I did this all by myself. Nobody else did this with me. Well, that's interesting. Why would he push that forward? That's an interesting comment, because he's offering that information forward. Nobody asked him that question. He wasn't being asked that question. It was just a statement he made. So this is generic. Please don't think I have the actual form here of a tip form. And remember, this wasn't written out on an Orion form because it wouldn't have pulled anything. It wasn't entered yet. When God bless you, Kathy Shank, found this, it was still in the same format that Dan DULIN wrote. It had the wrong name on it, which I gave this as an example. Richardallen Whitman. And then you got to remember what information you're taking down. So he goes home. He spends 10 minutes with them. He must be writing it down. And then he goes, types it out on Microsoft Word. And then turns that form in. Or as he says, files that form. Nobody else sees it again till 2022. 5 years later. Was it always there? Did somebody move it? Who wrote cleared on it? If a form or what he turned in was just sitting there, that would be one thing, but it's not, guys. It's got cleared written on it. How did somebody clear it if it doesn't have the right name on it? How is it cleared? I even wrote in the bottom part of this sheet. I used this as another law enforcement's tip form, so I just kind of used it. And the front part of it is supposed to be the information you got from somebody, and the back is supposed to be what they know about a suspect. So you got to think of what did Dan DULIN know about a suspect while he's talking to Richardallen. We do have the picture of him. They do know that they're trying to find somebody on the bridge. They do know that they want somebody who's parked at the building. By 2019, they're also still repeating that. Kathy Shank says that the reason it also stood out to her is because she knew that there were 3 girls who had seen the guy. Well, if Kathy Shank knew that, wouldn't have Dan DULIN? Now, I'm asking, not accusing. But once it's like out there, and if Kathy Shank, who's a volunteer, who's entering information and knows that, Dan DULIN was part of helping them do the investigation. Now, he was never at a press conference again. He was never anything else again after the first one. But even if he heard, because he was part of it, he lived in Delphi. I mean, hell, I'm not a law enforcement, but people heard there were witnesses. And if you find out or hear that there were some witnesses and stuff that saw him, wouldn't you think he would have said, hey, by the way, this guy, I literally saw 3 girls. And I wrote that stuff on this sheet at the bottom, the information from the person providing the info, which I'm calling Richardallen. This is a death homicide investigation. You're looking for somebody who's on the Monon High Bridge. The girls were taken off the Monon High Bridge. This guy says he's on the Monon High Bridge. He said he's there when the girls' murders was taking place. What do they know from the photo? Well, it's not clear, but you get about the approximation of his height. Dark jacket, blue jeans, the boots. Right? Later, they enter the clip of his voice. But then you have the other witnesses who talk about what he looked like. Think of eye color, about light color hair. And then you think about who you just saw. For me, I find it frustrating that he was forward that early on. And I think there's a lot of questions that aren't answered still in Delphi. And the Delphi stuff isn't over yet. It really isn't. Because when you think about it, there's a lot of questions that are still out there about many things. And if you saw what I dropped today in the community post of the filings from the defense team, they're not worried about, Richardallen doing any type of anything for the coming up hearing on Friday. They're just worried about the appeal. And I'm kind of shocked. If you have somebody who fails, if you also saw, I also dropped what the budget was from the auditor from Carroll County and how much was spent. And $107,000 for expert witnesses from the defense. And I asked him there, what the hell happened to the money that was donated by hardworking people for the defense and expert witnesses? Would you keep the same attorneys if they lost for you to be found guilty? In my opinion, I don't think they did their job. They stayed on the Odinist thing, and if they would have got off the Odinist stuff, they could have sat here and made some kind of reasonable doubt, but they had no plan for what their reasonable doubt was. They didn't even try to create another reasonable doubt. They didn't bring up witnesses to say, what kind of person is Richardallen, and, and have those type of statements and stuff. I thought it was interesting. They never brought up, his mother, that he came out to their house and ate. Well, why did he leave? And guess what? I didn't say this specifically, but, Richardallen's mother lived out in Peru. So did Kathy Allen's mother and brother back when before he passed away. Lived in Peru. Well, guess who else lived in Peru? The Kleins. So did he find out when he was in Peru that she's going out to the park, and they get that information that she's finally going to be heading over that way? Did she got a ride? So, now they're going to hurry up and head that way. There's a lot more that needs to be revealed. And we'll find out what the sentencing is, which I think it'll probably end up being the max, since he was convicted of both a felony murder and murder, which are two different things. One is for kidnapping that led to the death of somebody, and one is also deliberate murder. But we will see. So I wanted to bring those thoughts to you. What are your thoughts? Who else could have wrote cleared on Richardallen's tip sheet? Doesn't make sense. In my opinion, that could be very deliberate, that somebody wrote cleared for they wouldn't have looked at him and his form. Tell me in the comments what your thoughts are. Please make sure to hit that like button. Please subscribe to support the channel. And I will have some more, probably short videos of other questions I still have that I think haven't been answered. So I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for being a part and being a justice warrior. And most of all, thank you for making sure that justice is served daily. Bye, guys.